established as an irrevocable fact. All right, we're completing chapter 12 of the third canto this morning. Anyone remember the title of this chapter? Hard question. No, that's the title of the third canto. This is not an open book test. It's called Creation of the Kumaras and Others. So we're studying in this section of the Bhagavatam is the whole expansion of creation. Remember, we read about how first the raw ingredients of various energies are created by the Lord, and then Brahma comes in and assembles all of these raw ingredients in various ways. So this chapter elaborates on how he manifests these various entities and energies within the universe that we see. Okay, so we're going to read now about 22 slokas that describe these things in detail. So starting with text 34. And let's just go this side and lady side, please. Let's start.
Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifested from his four mouths.
The four kinds of paraphernalia for conducting the fire sacrifice became manifest: the performer, the chanter, the offerer, the fire, and the action performed in the terms of the supplementary Vedas. Also, the four principles of religiosity, truth, austerity, mercy, and cleanliness, and the duties in the four social orders all became manifest.
So remember that the first thing he creates is sacrifice. Very first thing out the gate, sacrifice. Because how did he become enlightened? By his austerity, right? By his sacrifice. When there was nothing, and you heard, oh, austerity, tapa. Then, so the first thing he then in turn creates is the various ingredients of sacrifice.
Vidura said, "O great sage, whose only wealth is penance, kindly explain to me how and with whose help Brahma established the Vedic knowledge which emanated from his mouth."
Maitreya said, beginning from the front face of Brahma, gradually the four Vedas, Rik, Yajur, Sama, and Atharva, became manifest. Thereafter, Vedic hymns which had not been pronounced before, priestly rituals, the subject matters of the recitation, and transcendental activities were all established one after another.
He also created the medical science, military art, musical art, and architectural science, all from the Vedas. They all emanated one after another, beginning from the front face.
Then he created the fifth Veda, the Puranas, and the histories from all his mouth, since he could see all the past, present, and future.
By the way, what's another word for the histories? Does anyone know? Itihasas. Yeah, itihasas. So he could see the history, the future history, which had not yet happened.
All the different varieties of fire sacrifices, Shodashi, Ukta, Purishi, Agnistoma, Aptoryama, Atiratra, Vajapaya, and Govasa became manifested from the eastern mouth of Brahma.
You will be tested on all of these.
Education, charity, penance, and truth are said to be the four legs of religion. To learn this, there are four orders of life, with different classifications of castes according to vocation. Brahma created all these in systematic order.
Then, the thread ceremony for the twice born was inaugurated, as were the rules to be followed for at least 1 year after acceptance of the Vedas. Rules for observing complete abstinence from sex life, vocations in terms of Vedic injunctions, various professional duties in household life, and the method of maintaining a livelihood without anyone's cooperation by picking up rejected grains.
The four divisions of retired life are Vaikunthanas, Balakayas,
four divisions of the renounced order of life are the Bhagavatas, Hamsas, and all these were manifested.
Okay, let's pause for a moment here. These interesting synonyms before divisions of retired life. So the first one is called the section of men who retire from active life and live on half-boiled meals, like halfway to a raw diet. And then the next one, Balalika, that is one who quits his former stock of grains on receipt of more. In other words, no longer piling up supplies for the future. Then Audambura, one who lives on what he gets from the direction which he starts after rising from bed. So in other words, whatever way you're facing when you get up, you just go that way, and whatever you get in that direction, no looking around. And then the last one who lives on the fruits which automatically fall from the tree. Yes, you need a lot of trees. So this is the retired life. And again, so much of this is in the context of rural India, where you can actually do these things. There's so much opulence. Can't do that in this part of the world where the fruit trees are rare and protected. Even in Miami, I remember living in Miami, there were mango trees in vacant lots. And there'd just be mangoes lying on the ground everywhere. No one bothered to pick them up. One of the devotees would go out with a shopping cart in the morning and just fill it up and bring it back. It's hard to imagine. But you'll see that in India sometimes. It's incredibly opulent, that tropical climate. So now the four divisions of sannyas, kutichak means that so the sannyasi is leaving home altogether. The sannyasi moves out of the home and lives in a hut in the woods. That's called kutichak. And the family brings meals, but they don't interact anymore. And then bahudak means that then one will go around from house to house in the village and collect alms. So it's no longer just dependent on the family. And then the third one, hamsa. Hamsa. Well, probably just a little bit differently elsewhere. The next is Parivrajacharya, where one will travel from village to village, no longer just hang out at the home village, go from place to place. And then finally the Hangsa. Hangsa means one who can take the essence of life. So that person is not really bound by any of these restrictions. But wherever that person goes, there is just spirituality, pure spirituality. So these are progressive stages of renunciation. Okay, you made all these arrangements. Go ahead.
The science of logical argument, the Vedic goals of life, also law and order, moral codes, and the celebrated hymns Bhu, Bhuva, and Swaha all became manifested from mouths of Brahma, and the Pranava Omkara was manifested from his heart.
Thereafter, the art of literary expression, Ushnik, was generated from the hairs on the body of the Almighty Prajapati. The principal Vedic hymn, Gayatri, was generated from the skin, Trishtup from the flesh, Anushtup from the veins, and Jagati from the bones of the Lord of the living entities.
And who is the Almighty Prajapati? Brahma. Yeah, we're talking about Brahma. By the way, these various literary divisions are, as I understand, meters of Sanskrit. Trishtup is da 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 da. Anushtup is the one in this verse. Anyway, the one you see in Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam Paricha Janamamikam Charanam Rajan. This is iambic pentameter in English. So these are various divisions of meters.
The art of writing verse, Pankti, became manifested from the bone marrow, and that of Brihati, another type of verse, was generated from the life breath of the Lord of the living entity.
Brahma's soul was manifested as the touch alphabets, his body as the vowels, his senses as the sibilant alphabets, his strength as the intermediate alphabets, and his central activities as the 7 notes of music.
So this is the Sanskrit language being described. Sanskrit. It's also known Devanagari, right, which means the language of the gods. And it's the most scientific language because it's all based on sounds, the various sounds that the human mouth can make. All the vowels are constructed from okay, and
Brahma is the personal representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead as the source of transcendental sound, and is therefore above the conception of manifested and unmanifested. Brahma is the complete form of the Absolute Truth and is invested with multifarious energies.
Brahma accepted another body in which sex life was not forbidden, and thus he engaged himself in the matter of further creation.
O son of the Kurus, when Brahma saw that in spite of the presence of these sages of great potency, there was no sufficient increase in population, he seriously began to consider how the population could be increased.
Okay, so he's just created all of these different facilities. There's more. There's still more. So there's all these facilities he makes, and then he sees there's not enough. In China, there's this huge economic boom before the pandemic, and everyone was thinking China is going to be like competing with America for economic supremacy in the world. And then partially as a result of the pandemic and other factors like the stifling of capitalism by increasingly authoritarian leaders, the boom started to pop, or it started to fizzle. And as a result, they have millions of housing developments that were started thinking all these wealthy, at least middle-class people could come in and buy them. They're just sitting there empty now. I mean, hundreds of thousands. Yeah. Ghost cities. Yeah, so this is how Brahma was feeling, like those developers, Well, I built all this and there's no one to live.
Brahma thought to himself, alas, it is wonderful that in spite of my being scattered all over, there is still insufficient population throughout the universe. There is no other cause for this misfortune but destiny.
While he was thus absorbed in contemplation, was observing the supernatural power, 2 other forms were generated from his body. They are still celebrated as the body of Brahma.
So earlier we read how the Kumaras came from the body of Brahma, but they just wanted to stay brahmacharis, and he got angry. So Rudra came from his forehead, Shiva. And now these 2 bodies manifested, and these 2 newly separated bodies united together in a sexual relationship. One of them, the one who had the male form, became known as the Manu, named Swayambhuva, and the woman became known as Shatarupa, the queen of the great soul Manu. Thereafter, by sex indulgence, they gradually increased generations of population one after another. O son of Bharata, in due course of time, Manu begot in Shatarupa 5 children, 2 sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, and 3 daughters, Akuti, Devahuti, and Prasuti. The father, Manu, handed over his first daughter, Akuti, to the sage Ruchi, middle daughter, Devahuti, to the sage Kardama, and the youngest, Prasuti, to Daksha. From them, all the world filled with population. So that is the next stage in this unfolding story. We're now in the subsequent chapters in the 3rd canto. We're going to hear about these various personalities, especially which couple? Kardama and Devahuti. And later we hear about Uttanapad, the father of Dhruva, and Priyavrat in the 5th canto. So this to keep context to the Bhagavatam, this is this unfolding story. And the basic plot is how everything was created, and then Brahma comes in and fills it up, and the sub-creations, and then he populates everything. All this is really the overall subject matter of the third and fourth cantos of the Bhagavatam. So, back to verse 34, please, in detail. 34, I believe. Oh, did I miss one? Sorry. Okay. Anyway, read to 34 in the book. No, I think I read it all. That was the last one was about Kardama, about how he gave away his daughters. These excuse me, these couples that were responsible for filling up the universe with progeny were known as Prajapatis. Praja means like the living beings or the people, the folks. And so Prajapatis, the fathers of everyone, they were very, very expert in procreation and very, very fruitful. So that was their service basically. And one of them, Daksha, we just mentioned, Daksha means expert. And he was expert in procreation, so much so that he could conceive not only copious numbers of people, but various species of life also. So these Prajapatis were very, very, very expert. So we'll read this pastime later. Where is that in the fourth canto about Daksha's sons being misled by Narada Muni? So he had large numbers of sons, and then Narada came along and said, "Why don't you be brahmacharis?" He said, "Okay, that sounds good." And Daksha was really angry at him. And so he had another massive number of sons. And then Narada came along and said, "Hey, you should, see what your older brothers did? They saved so much trouble." And so then Daksha cursed Narada. He will not be able to stay longer than 3 minutes in any one place. So that's why we see Narada popping up all throughout the Bhagavatam for brief interventions in most cases. I think I told you about my brahmachari friend I met in Mayapur. Did I tell you that? He was, he's an old friend. He's from Russia, Madan Mohan. He's like 50 something, been a brahmachari many, many years. And so we're talking about his brahmachari experience. And he said, "Yes, I come from a long line of Naishtika brahmacharis. My father was a Naishtika brahmachari. My grandfather was a Naishtika brahmachari." Okay, 34, please. Kadachit Jayatag Shastur Veda Asmang Shatur Mukhat Katam Shrakshyam Yaham Lokan Samavetan Yatapura Kadachit Jayatak Shastur Veda Asmang Shatur Mukhat Katam Shrakshyam Yaham Lokan Samavetan Yatapura Kadachit Jayata Shastru Veda Asmam Shatur Katam Shrakshyam Yaham Lokan Samavetan Yatapura Kadachit Jayata Shastru Veda Asmam Shatur Mukhat Katam Shrakshyam Yaham Lokan Samavetan Yatapura Ashram Situ and Mutad Pitam Shakshyam Yaham Lokan Samaveta Yata Pura. Okay. Before we do the synonyms, I just want to ask, does anyone remember, it's long, long ago on Friday, what was the dramatic event that just preceded this section of the chapter? Yes, very delicately put. Yes, he became attracted to whom? Yes, his daughter. And so as a result, some of his sons came and chastised him. And how did he feel? He felt very much ashamed, right? So now we're reading how Brahma proceeds from this point. Synonyms together, please. Kadachit, once upon a time, Vyayata, while contemplating of Brahma, Veda, the Vedic literature, a son became manifested. Saktuamukat, from the four mouths, Katam Shakshyami, how shall I create? Aham, myself, Lokan, all these worlds, Samavetan, assembled, Yata, as they were, Para, in the past. And translation together. Once upon a time, when Brahma was thinking of how to create the worlds as in the past millennium, the four Vedas, which contain all varieties of knowledge, became manifest. Okay. Report. Who would like to read?
As fire can consume anything and everything without being contaminated, so by the grace of the Lord, the fire of Brahma's greatness consumed his desire for the sinful act of sex with his daughter. The Vedas are the source of all knowledge, and they were first revealed to Brahma by the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead while Brahma was thinking of recreating the material world. Brahma is powerful by dint of his devotional service unto the Lord, and the Lord is always ready to forgive his devotee if by chance he falls down from the noble path of devotional service. The Srimad Bhagavatam 11.5.42 confirms this as follows. Swa Any person who is engaged 100% in the transcendental loving service of the Lord at his lotus feet is very dear to the personality of Godhead Hari. And the Lord, being situated in the heart of the devotee, excuses all kinds of sins committed by chance. It was never expected that the great personality like Brahma would ever think of sex indulgence with his daughter. The examples shown by Brahma only suggest that the power of material nature is so strong that it can act upon everyone, even Brahma. Brahma was saved by the mercy of the Lord with a little punishment. By the grace of the Lord, he did not lose his prestige as the great Brahma.
There was a great king once whose minister said to him that the sex desire is so strong that it will stay to the very end of life. And the king did not believe this. He thought, as I'm getting older, I'll become more free of this desire. But the minister said, no, it stays to the very end. The king said, I don't believe you. So the next day, the minister came and said, Your Majesty, please come with me. So they went to the house of a peasant in the kingdom. And the minister opened the door, and the king walked in. And there, in the little hut, was the owner, old man, lying on his deathbed, just on the verge of death. And so, standing next to him was his beautiful young daughter. And so the king's eyes, no, I beg your pardon. The king brought his daughter. That was it. Yes, yes. So the king had his beautiful young daughter and the minister. They went in this old man's house. He's on the bed about to die, and he opens his eyes, and his eyes go straight to the daughter. Here's the king walking into his house, but he looks right at the daughter. So when the king saw this, he turned to his minister and said, "Yeah, this I understand now. You never lose this desire." So why is this desire there? We see from this chapter how Brahma needed population. So part of his scheme for increasing the population was to give everyone this powerful desire to be a Prajapati. Now, rationally, we might ask ourselves, why would anyone want to have children? Right? Because so much pain in delivery, so much inconvenience in advance of delivery. You know, the father sitting outside the delivery room smoking a cigar saying, "Yeah, we did a good job." And the mother's like, but then after the child is born, so much, there's lots of coochie-coo, but there's also so much anxiety. You don't get to sleep for months. For months. And pretty much parents are going to write off a normal night's sleep. And then the child is sick and the child is crying, and then it costs, you ready for this? The average cost for raising a child in North America is $250,000. That's how much your parents invested in bringing you up on average. So no wonder they're upset that you're in the ashram. What a return on investment. Probably more. Yeah. Why would anyone bother with all of this? Well, later in the Bhagavatam, it's explained that Brahma coats the genitals with a pleasure-giving substance. Now, otherwise, no one would bother with this procreation. But the idea is that because we have these desires, there are lanes in which we need to stay, right? And it's just like driving. If you stay in your lane and you observe the speed limit, chances are you're not going to get in an accident unless some other person goes out of their lane, right? So in the same way, stay in our lane with these principles, and then we stay out of trouble. There is provision for sex life. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, "Kamosmi bharatarshava," I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. One of my friends said, just change that grammatically a little bit. I am sex life, comma, which is not contrary to religious principles. He said it all depends on where you put the comma. The comma means lust. Right? So sex itself is not the problem. The problem is illicit sex. It's uncontrolled sex. It is random pleasure sex. So Brahma himself was infected by this desire and had this very out of lane experience to become attracted to his own daughter. Now, what happened here is Brahma is like, okay, he's right back on the job. He got chastised, he was corrected, and then he turned his thoughts when Brahma was thinking of how to create the world, as in the past millenniums. So this creation is happening over, and creation, annihilation, many, many times in the day or in the existence of the universe. So anyway, Brahma is now back on the job. He deviated, he was chastised by his own son, and then he went back to work. And then he did all of these things. But then at the end of the chapter, you remember we read, he gave up his body and accepted a new body as a sort of an atonement for his deviation. So this is all very instructive, because who here has ever done something they regret? Don't all raise your hands at once. Okay. I'd like to spend the rest of the class just kind of going around and discussing. I will guarantee everyone will stay awake for class. When we do something out of our lane, or we do something that hurts others, or something we regret, how do we respond? So this is very different in Krishna consciousness and in ordinary consciousness. Generally, of course, any polite person, the polite thing to do is to apologize, to recognize, express remorse, and then rectify the error. Okay, so that devotee should do, non-devotee should do, any polite person will do. But the devotee, the life of the devotee is such that we are really putting ourselves on the spot, because we are seeking something higher than the ordinary pursuits of life. These ordinary pursuits are described as four. So many things Brahma creates are four, because he has four heads, at least in our particular Brahma. So anyway, these four ordinary pursuits of human life are dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Dharma means to do your duty. Artha means economic development. Kama means then sense enjoyment, and then moksha means liberation. So this is the cycle of human activities. If you are a good person, you're responsible, you get up Monday morning, you go to work, you do your job, you produce, then on Friday, what happens? It's payday, right? You got a paycheck. Your artha, your economic development comes. And then on Saturday, yeah, no, not yet. Maybe you.
We started early, a day early.
Yeah. No, that Saturday is kama, right? I got my money, I got my paycheck. Let me go and enjoy life, because I've been working hard all week. And then Sunday morning, wake up. Oh, I'll never do this again. Let me go to church. I'm going to refrain from ever doing this again. This is moksha, liberation. I want to be free of this ridiculous pattern. And then Monday starts up again. So this is the like a dog chasing its tail. This is the ordinary life of materialistic people. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught prema pumartha mohana, that the greater goal of human life is prema, to go for love of God. This arises above the ordinary cyclical activities of the materialist. So when we're pursuing this higher goal and we mess up, what happens? We give up the ordinary pursuits, and then we mess up. Remember in the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 6, Arjuna has this question, and Krishna is telling him about the yoga method. And Arjuna said, "This sounds really hard." He says, "It is hard, but it's possible." But then he says, "But what happens if I take up this path and then I'd fall down? Then I've lost my material life and my spiritual life." Then like a riven cloud, that a riven cloud means a cloud that somehow is separated from the mass of clouds and is floating along in the atmosphere. That cloud, unless it joins with the bigger cloud, will just dissipate. So he's comparing himself. I'm just going to be a riven cloud. I'm not going to have any existence on any sphere. And so then Krishna says that no, there's no worry about this, because one who does good is never overcome by evil. In other words, if we take up spiritual life and we fail, still there's no loss. The same point is made by Narada Muni, by Vyasa, the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Taktva swadharmam charanam bhujam harer bhajana pakpo tat patet pato yadi. One who takes up Krishna consciousness and then falls down. What's the loss? Because there was sincere effort for something higher. So there's no loss. But on the other hand, one who is very successful in dharma, artha, kama, and moksha, what is the gain? Because the same pattern will just keep repeating. So Krishna tells Arjuna that if you try but fail in yoga, in your next life, you'll take birth in a situation that's very favorable for continuing your practice. It's like a deposit in a spiritual bank account that can never be closed. So that's why it's all auspicious, Krishna consciousness. It's all auspicious. Whatever anyone does is of their permanent benefit. So this verse is quoted from the 11th canto. Any person who is engaged 100% in the service of the Lord is very dear to the Lord, and the Lord being situated in the heart of the devotee excuses all kinds of sins committed by the devotee. So this is not exactly a get out of jail card, a get out of jail free card. Okay, I'm a devotee, I fall down, no problem, Krishna will relieve me. Prabhupada said he will do that once, twice, but not thrice. So a fall down like Brahma means we have an accidental fall down, situational fall down. It's not this carefully orchestrated, choreographed, planned fall down. But just by some circumstance, we become overwhelmed by the circumstances and our senses go out of control. That can be excused. But if it's deliberate with the idea that, okay, I'll just chant a few extra rounds and compensate, that is the worst offense to the holy name. That is the seventh offense? To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting. So we're walking this fine line in Krishna consciousness. Being a devotee means you're not going to have the ordinary life that people have, but you also not have the ordinary frustration that people have, the emptiness, the hollowness that people have. You will have fulfillment of a different variety than ordinary people ever experience. So yeah, in the course of that, if there's an accident, we can take this lesson from Brahma, that he fell down, but he got right back up, got right to work, and then compensated by accepting a new body himself. Accepting a new body is, it's no fun. Have you ever seen a baby born laughing? It is a painful experience, but this was Brahma's atonement. So we don't have to atone in Krishna consciousness. Does anyone remember this example from the Srimad Bhagavatam? Who was it who was very sinful, but then instead of atoning was liberated by what? By just chanting. Who was that? Ajamil, right, in the sixth canto. So in response, or elsewhere in the Gita, Krishna says, Api chet sudaracharo bhajate mam ananyabhat. Even if someone commits the most abominable action, if they are situated in devotional service, they are to be considered saintly. So amongst devotees, this is a really important verse to understand, because we always need to give the benefit of a doubt to somebody who's seriously practicing Krishna consciousness. If they have had some deviation, then we don't focus on that. I was talking with a friend the other day who was pointing out there's one very nice senior devotee in our movement, had a sterling career of service, but at one point had just one circumstantial deviation. But whenever anyone talks about that person, they talk about the deviation. Everything else is overlooked. So this is the fly mentality. We really want to have the bee mentality, looking for the nectar, not the stool. So Abhichet Sudaracharo means that we can forgive a devotee, forgive and forget if a devotee has done something wrong, because Krishna gives this personal offering. Abhichet Sudaracharo. Sudara means like very bad. But if one resumes devotional service, they must be considered saintly. So again, this is once, twice, but not repeatedly. This is the lesson from Brahma in this section. Anyone like to share any of their regrets or ask any questions or make any other comments? Anyone like to share? Yes, go ahead. There's a mic here.
Question. I've heard this before, that Krishna forgives once, twice, but not thrice. But it makes me think of like addictions, because a devotee can be really sincere and really try hard and fall constantly over and over and over and over again, it's because the attachment to whatever the addiction is very strong. But it's not that they try to take advantage of Krishna, it's just that it's really hard to get out of an addiction. So what about that?
Yeah. Yes, the fact remains that if we continue with addictive behavior, that we will not be able to progress in our spiritual life in this lifetime. So there's no loss, even if a person can't observe all of the regulations. Still, they can at least position themselves for a future life. If we can just observe these 4 restrictions, these 4 regulative principles, and chant 16 rounds, that's adequate, that's sufficient to make this our last lifetime. So devotees who are trying but have addictions are basically trading, okay, I'll trade in another birth. Krishna, please just let me continue in my next birth. Right? Srila Prabhupada said like this: we've had so many lives trying to satisfy our senses. Are they satisfied? So there are even support groups for devotees who are addicted. What is it? Bhakti recovery groups, the wisdom of the sages. So there are many devotees in this situation. But it's meant to help overcome these addictions. So if we have an addiction, first thing is to acknowledge it. This 12-step program for Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step. I'm powerless in the face of my addiction. I don't have the power, therefore I need the help of a higher power to overcome this addiction. And addiction has many, many forms. There are some that are very conspicuously detrimental, like alcohol or hard drugs. But there are others like caffeine and tobacco that are apparently, not that harmful, but are still in that category. So Srila Prabhupada was very tolerant initially, but then he said no more cheap initiations. He did not want people to continue these things after having taken vows to abstain from them. Okay? Yes, Advaita Prabhu, would you like to elucidate?
Thank you very much for the class. There's another dynamic in the whole situation of addiction, that in an environment that it's free from shame or shaming, it will be very difficult to heal or to overcome. Could you speak more about that, or healthy environment that it's free from shaming? Because that will prevent one to acknowledge.
Right, thank you. Yes, so if the environment is such that people will ridicule, make fun, try to make people feel guilty, this strategy is ineffective at helping people overcome addiction. Guilt is the mode of ignorance, and you don't fight ignorance with more ignorance. Rather, it is the higher taste, Vishaya Vinivartante Nira Rasyadehina. We have to get some enjoyment that supersedes the enjoyment we get from our addictive behavior. So that's possible when there's support, when there's love, when there's encouragement, when we recognize that somebody's really trying and people feel reciprocated with, for trying to overcome this detrimental habit. That's the mode of goodness. And the transcendental mode of goodness is when we're encouraging people based on our kirtan and our practice of sadhana bhakti. That's why kirtan is so powerful and recommended in this age, because everybody comes together, and regardless of whatever the past is, now we are sharing in this moment where God is in the center, and we are resonating with one another on this experience, on this platform. Wow, God really is the center for you and for me and for him and for her. And we really are all children of God. We really are self-defeating behavior of materialism. Kunti, you talked about addiction, like specifically, but we're all addicts in the material world. We have been addicted to sense gratification for a long time. So it's not surprising that it takes a while to overcome. But Sankirtan is such that it allows us automatically to rise above those platforms. So we just stay. Prabhupada called kirtan the safest place in the material world. If the roof were to collapse and we're in kirtan, oh, back to Godhead. All right. Yeah. Yes, Prabhu.
So one more thing that I heard they have in Africa, as one is trying to overcome addictions of all kinds, as you said, we all have our own personal struggles, and they tend to maybe make slip-ups or how do you call them, relapses.
Mm.
And there's one tribe in Africa, when they have a person in the center, the person that struggles, they put him in the center, and they, from all around, they actually speak to them in positive affirmations, recognizing the good, and just feeding and nourishing the strength required and needed for the struggle. That is on the opposite side of shaming and just recognizing the good and just love bombing them being in the center. And sometimes people actually broke down. It will be very emotionally stimulated and energized. But, oh, here's my support system. It is possible.
Amazing. Positive encouragement.
Yeah.
Yes, like in the UK, where medicine, much of Europe, where medicine is much more civilized than America, where it's a business. Doctors are actually, they're given bonuses when their patients quit smoking. Get the patient to quit smoking, then they get an extra bump. So it's all by, they're given an incentive for positive encouragement. So, okay. Just one more, just want to mention there's going to be a lot of construction going on. Did you hear about this? So the parking situation has been so bad that the city's they're adopting one of these programs from the bigger cities where they build a second tier. They put sheds and a road across the top, so you can actually go up a little ramp and park on top. It'll double the parking capacity. So we'll have it out here and across the street. It's going to be a bit of a mess while they're setting it up. But at least they'll relieve the pressure a bit. What's that? Yes, yes. It's going to start soon, like real soon. Like, what's today? April 1st. Oh, it's April 1st. Okay. No. So let's see if you're paying attention. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.
Full of ignorance, pride, lust, and innocence, throw us into the sea of death and murder. Of the senses, lusty tongues, rarely can be overcome. By the soul that is suffering on this earth, Krishna is so merciful, he does living friends, he has died. Let us take what he has left, calling lovely. Radha Krishna, shining light, shining tides, to the Prabhupada ki jai. Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Bhagavad Mahaprasad ki. So you have
That's a penalty. Shame. The rest.
Yeah, I can see what. Yeah, I'm still forgetting.
Hey, there's no shame in it. Yeah. Okay. I go. Shame.
You're playing the wrong game.
Yeah, I'll be going around. Same food. I'll be going around. Yeah. Yeah.
Happy Hoppo or Jackie Chocolate.
Hopefully it's not a jacket. The girls. That's all I have to say.
I was trying to think, spices, like spices that. But I wonder if something. Yeah. लेकिन अभी मैं बाद में बात करूँ. Read something. Yes, please. I just came in as you pray. Yeah. As the officer prayer. Some things at this moment. Yeah. All right. That's strange. Possibly one. Yes. So yeah, it's been a lot of time. Stand on the street. Yes. Right across the one there. So you have to sit on the chair. Oh. Sure.
All right. Where you coming from? Where you coming from? You're from the inside. Yeah. You from here? Where are you? Brooklyn Temple.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Shoot.
Yeah, no, me neither. You went there recently. Oh, you didn't know?
No.
Yeah. Eat pizza?
I was running a talk show.
Yeah, I know Big Temple Flash, but you missed Temple like and how. See if I can make something right now. I'm with them. Okay, okay. Nice to meet you. Oh, that.
Yes.
Okay, awesome.
It's fine. Okay. Yeah. Sunday.